Welcome everyone to the finale of Tower of God's Hell Train arc. This video will be a short one as it concludes everything and also gets us ready for the upcoming events nearing Season 3 of the Tower of God manhwa. I hope you enjoy this video, guys. Now let's get right into the video. The final storyline for Tower of God's Hell Train arc opens right below the altar which receives Jahad's orders, also known as the accommodations for the altar administrators. Here, Jahad High Priest Stuart Arthur and the altar's staff have just received the King of the Tower's latest 3 orders. And much like the newly hired ranker, Charlie, and the Vice Altar Director earlier, everyone in the same room within the accommodations office is shocked to find out about the unprecedented details of Jahad's 3 orders. The Vice Altar Director is obviously panicked with this development, so he seeks High Priest Arthur's advice. As he puts it, there could be major trouble if people find out about the contents of this order from Lord Jahad. However, Arthur remains cool as a cucumber. Instead of scampering, the High Priest analyzes each command within the 3 orders. According to him, the pretext of the first order is clear, but the downside to that is that FUG is like a religion, so it would be basically impossible to take out each and every one of its members completely. On the other hand, Arthur thinks that the second order is the least difficult to accomplish among the 3, considering that it just says everyone currently riding the Hell Train should be taken out. Still, Arthur sees a problem in this. For one, they have to violate the rules of the tower if they go after the passengers of the Hell Train. On top of that, it's difficult to find any justification for attacking regulars. As for the third order, well, Arthur might as well just ignore it. As he puts it, this one's a nightmare, as it gives out the order to eliminate each and every member of the Pobido family. Simply put, attempting to follow this command would mean that the tower would enter a state of total war and chaos. But the High Priest remains committed to his duties. According to him, the job of their office isn't to interpret Jahad's orders, it's to deliver on them. As such, it's up to the military and administrative authorities to decide which of the options within Jahad's 3 orders they should lead with. Arthur goes on to reiterate that the third option is the stupidest one to follow, since there are several rankers from the Pobido family already working within Jahad's administrative and military branches, so it'll just inevitably lead to more instability within the tower. The High Priest also warns that they are now also at risk of prematurely entering a state of war should the contents of the 3 orders reach the Pobido family. So when the Vice Altar Director asks what they should do, Arthur goes the bureaucratic route and gives out the command to keep the 3 orders classified for now and only let a very limited number of people they trust know about it. The Vice Altar Director isn't too comfortable with this, since their standard operating procedure demands that they present the 3 orders in front of the ministers. But Arthur has a solution for that, as he plans on using Charlie, their new hire, to be their patsy, the sacrificial lamb who will take the blame for any problems that might arise from their schemes. Back on the Hell Train, Wanyan has no idea why everyone who went into the hidden floor has all been scattered. Plus, we find out that he didn't willingly take the weapon. He was desperate to save his friends and felt he was out of other options to save them, which explains why he took the deal. In the middle of this, Karaka gets cheeky and attempts to ambush the unconscious bomb lying on the floor in the middle of the room. Yura instantly notices this and jumps in to block Karaka's attack. However, the Fug Slayer is a crafty boy, and we find out that he's actually aiming for Wanyan. And in the blink of an eye, Karaka manages to subdue Wanyan with his bony tentacles. Karaka then makes Yuri an offer, Wanyan's life in exchange for Yuri leaving bomb inside this room. Of course, Yuri's having none of that guff. As she puts it, Karaka's going to be screwed too if he messes with a regular inside the Hell Train, so she prepares a Shinsu ball in her hands for another go-round against her opponent. But in true Tower of God fashion, we get a retroactive continuity fix that comes out of nowhere when Karaka reveals that the rules of the Hell Train don't apply in this particular room. Yuri thinks he's bluffing, and the 2 enemies get into another standoff. Yuri and Karaka are just about ready to throw hands when a flash of bright light from Wanyan's new weapon nearly blinds the princess. And when she opens her eyes, she finds that both Wanyan and Karaka are nowhere to be found. We then discover that the 2 have been transported in another section of the Hell Train. Karaka surmises that this happened because of Wanyan's blade, so he asks him where he got the weapon. Somewhere else, we see that Team Rachel has landed in yet another different part inside the Hell Train. The rest of the group wonder how they ended up in a completely different place from where they left and surmises that it might be because of a power different from the mirror. And while the rest of Team Rachel are busy making themselves useful trying to figure out what had just happened, Rachel herself hilariously loses her marbles when she realizes she's back to her original fugly freckled form again. In fact, Yura seems to finally realize that she might have bet on the wrong horse, seeing as how unhinged Rachel has gotten just because she's not a hot elf lady anymore. Back inside the room right in front of the hidden floor's original entrance, Yuri rushes to Bomb and is absolutely relieved to find out that the boy is still breathing. Shortly after, Yuri reaches another room where she finds the rest of their allies. And right now, Rack and the others are having a big problem. Specifically, it would seem that Kun isn't breathing anymore after Rachel pulled a fast one on him back on the hidden floor. In yet another part of the train, Boro, Hockney, and Sachi are just glad that they made it out of the hidden floor in one piece. Boro comments on how everything that happened on the hidden floor seems like a short dream. He then asks his companions what the heck they did there. Knowing the rules of the hidden floor, Sachi advises his old friend to stop talking about it for fear that they might lose their memories of their recent adventures. Boro agrees with this, but not before remarking how this whole experience feels like they're being carried along all over the place by a massive wave. In the end, Boro asks if there is even any meaning to the things that they did on the hidden floor. In a way, Hockney provides Boro some comfort when he tells him that there might just be a point to all of this, given that the ones who caused this wave are very distant beings, unknown to them and even to Rachel herself. The treasure-eating Stingray is currently in possession of the bracelet that Gustang has been looking for this whole time. A couple of days pass and we find ourselves at the Administration Authority's chairperson's office, Wisdom. Inside, a masked Jahad priest speaks to the chairperson, Arvin Liu. Arvin is understandably concerned about Jahad's latest 3 orders, prompting the priest to tell him that they've managed to stop its details from leaking all over the administration, all thanks to Arthur's quick thinking. We then discover that Arthur did proceed with using Charlie as their sacrificial lamb. According to their office's official statement, Charlie was the only person who received the orders, and since he's a new employee, he thought it wasn't important and discarded Jahad's 3 orders. As a consequence of this ploy, every employee below the High Priest was sentenced to death, but regardless, the Masked Priest tells Arvin that they've managed to intercept it from their end and file the 3 orders as a classified mission for now. Arvin's just glad that this turn of events bought them more time to plan out their next move. However, the Masked Priest does warn that it might not be enough, considering that the 3 orders would have also been delivered to Adori Jahad, the captain of Jahad's royal guards. In response, Arvin tells him that they have to carry out one of the 3 orders as quickly as possible, before the Pobido family even finds out about it. The chairperson then asks the Masked Priest what Adori Jahad said when she saw the 3 orders. As the Masked Priest tells it, Adori answered in typical fashion that it's the duty of all officials to ensure that a war does not start and that she's merely the blade which cuts down the enemies of the Jahad family. In addition to that, Adori said that the administration should strive for peace and that the military would try to annihilate all 3 enemies. Arvin thinks Adori is as stubborn as ever. Plus, he and the Masked Priest both know that she's capable of doing everything she said, which makes the whole deal even scarier for everyone involved. While all this is happening, we get a glimpse of the tower's 91st floor. Here, in the middle area, stands the residence of none other than the infamous high-ranker Ha Jin-sung. And right now, Jin-sung has an unexpected guest. He sits on top of his house and tells this guest that the Jahad family must have a lot of money right now, seeing that they've brought a lot of floating ships to a place that's going to be destroyed soon. He then asks the person in front of him if this is a formal declaration of war, and we find out that this person happens to be the one and only Masheni Jahad, who tells Jin-sung that there will be a war soon. A fleet of floating ships surround Jin-sung's home, but the man isn't fazed at all. Instead, he gives Masheni a lecture on how she's still as delusional as ever. Jin-sung then asks Masheni if she knows why there hasn't been a major war in the tower since the ancient wars. But it's more of a rhetorical question, because Jin-sung immediately proceeds to monologue about how old people like him hate change. As he puts it, people like him who have been around for a long time are afraid of change. And although their bodies don't get sick or weaken as they grow older, their minds sure do get sick and become dull to everything. Jin-sung's monologue concludes with him talking about how making changes isn't something for the older generation to do. Besides, change has already started happening gradually down the tower. Just to add a bit of shade to his speech, Jin-sung tells Masheni to wash up and get some sleep instead of stepping up to him for a tussle. In turn, Masheni goes on her own monologue. This time, it's about Jin-sung's rage. She goes on to pretty much recap Jin-sung's origin story, mainly about how he gladly became one of Fug's demons after finding out that the reason the woman he loved had to be killed was deeply tied to the Jahad family. On a more productive note, Masheni does correctly surmise that Jin-sung's rage is still alive inside him. It doesn't matter how much he tries to hide his anger, it just gets more intense and clings to him even more firmly as time passes and he recalls all those bitter memories of his. Masheni finally puts a cap on her monologue and pretty much tells Jin-sung that as long as that rage lives, war can break out any time. And just like that, she gives the fleet the order to open fire. The flagship of the fleet blasts Jin-sung with its cannon, but it does nothing to even put a scratch on the man. When the dust settles, we see that Jin-sung's house has been pulverized, but he himself is completely unaffected by the barrage. In fact, one of the floating ship's crew members makes it clear that Jin-sung suffered 0 damage even after all that. More alarming is that he didn't even need a separate Shinsu barrier to defend against their weapons. Meanwhile, Jin-sung throws more shade at Masheni, telling her how all of Jahad's princesses really do have nasty personalities. On the other end, Masheni receives a call from her fleet asking her what they should do. In reply, Masheni tells each and every one of her men that they just messed with an ancient beast, so now it's time for every one of them to die an honorable death. As for Jin-sung, well, he makes quick work of the entire fleet when he effortlessly raises one hand and uses a technique called Jin-sung-ha style Shinsu control skill, Red World Water Drop, to rout a large chunk of Masheni's fleet. We find out that the Red World technique just eliminated the entire left flank of Masheni's floating ship fleet. But the princess doesn't care about that. Instead, she focuses on Jin Sung and notices that the old man still hasn't lost a step and that it looks like he's still in the game. From there, the remaining ships of the fleet call for a retreat, all while raising the warning level for the target to Red 3. All of a sudden, a gigantic ship appears right above Jin Sung just as the fleet gives out the order to proceed with their target's complete annihilation. Not far away, Masheni declares that the so-called cannon salute from the army will now announce the start of the war. Now this giant ship isn't unlike the others. It's actually called King Jahad's deadly weapon number 9, Anti-High Ranker's El Robina. Jin Sung knows about this and, as you'd expect, the man doesn't give two tosses about the devastating superweapon floating above him. Rather, he criticizes Jahad for wasting his resources, considering that Jin Sung is well aware that he has only 10 deadly weapons in his arsenal. Jin Sung asks if Jahad is really serious about going to war, as El Robina blasts him directly with a devastating wave of energy. Back on the Hell Train, Bomb finally regains consciousness and is greeted by Yuri, who's genuinely ecstatic that her favorite boy is finally awake. Curiously, Endorsi is also in the same room but remains quiet. Moments later, Boro and the others walk in to greet Bomb. Bomb tries to talk about what happened on the hidden floor, but Hackney rightfully cuts him off before their memories of the place get erased as per the rules. This happy reunion takes a turn for the tragic when Bomb asks if the rest of their friends are alright. That's because shortly after, Boro and the others lead Bomb to a different part of the train where he sees his best friend Kun floating inside a glass box. Boro tells Bomb that they're not sure what exactly happened to Kun, only that it looks like someone jumped him. To make matters worse, Kun's heart isn't beating right now. Don't worry though, he's not dead. As Evan puts it, Kun's body is currently in a frozen state. He goes on to tell Bomb that Kun was the one who froze his own body and stopped all of its functions. Long story short, Kun is in suspended animation right now to prevent himself from succumbing to the backstab wound he got from that scumbag Rachel. Like the rest of their companions though, Evan has no idea what exactly happened to Kun. At this moment, Evan has used one of his items on Kun to help him last a little longer. But Evan warns him that Kun would probably die soon if he's taken out of that state. Understandably enough, Bomb panics and demands to know what happened to his best friend while he was out on the hidden floor fighting. Finally, Endorsi breaks her silence and tells Bomb that she's going to tell him everything she knows. She then takes Bomb away using Bong Bong. A second later, and the two find themselves inside a room with Beta. Bomb wonders what the heck Beta is doing outside of Kun's lighthouse. Twitchy tells him that he's not sure how he was able to get out of there. On the other hand, Beta has noticed something strange. For one, it appears that all of the rules banning rankers from entering the Hell Train and messing with the regulars have now been thrown out the window. Then there's also the fact that it seems people don't even need tickets to board the Hell Train anymore. As Beta puts it, this place is in a state of anarchy now. But before Bomb could ask him more irrelevant questions, Beta cuts him off and tells him that he knows exactly what happened to Kun on the hidden floor. After briefly dumping an exposition about how Beta was stored inside a lighthouse this whole time, he tells Bomb that he saw Rack disappear as soon as they got out of the hidden floor. On top of that, Rack makes the satisfying declaration that he's going to kill that yellow freckled turtle, referring to none other than that pudgy sleazebag Rachel. Bomb's brain takes a moment to buffer and realizes who Beta is talking about in the end. But Bomb is still in denial, since he didn't see Rachel anywhere back when they were on the hidden floor. To finally stop the boys' incessant line of fruitless questions, Beta hands Bomb a memory stick containing a recording of everything he saw on the hidden floor. Even better, Beta surmises that Bomb won't lose his memories of the place even after seeing this data. So Bomb hooks up the memory stick to a lighthouse and sees the moment when Rack checks up on Kun after Rachel flatlined him. Without saying a word, Bomb turns around and heads for the door. Endorsi asks him where he's going, to which Bomb says that he has to stop Rack. Knowing that Bomb is a cuckolded dope when it comes to Rachel, she assumes that he's going to forgive the scumbag yet again. But Bomb proves that he's not a soft wimp anymore when he corrects Endorsi and tells the princess that he's not there to stop Rack from taking out Rachel. He's actually joining his old friend to make the freckled piece of trash pay for what she did to Kun. Bomb then storms off, leaving Endorsi and Beta inside the room. Beta notices the princess seems relatively quiet throughout all of this, so he asks her what's wrong, given that seeing Rachel getting taken down is what she wanted in the first place. In answer, Endorsi tells Beta that it's time for them to get to work and drags him into their drama. Somewhere else, Boro and Sachi have a private conversation. Boro asks his old friend where Misang is, and we find out that the little girl still insists on going on looking for Rachel by herself. In the end, Boro and Sachi make the decision to tell Bomb about the deaths they suffered from their recent quest bit by bit. Not too far away, Hwaryun spots Bomb fuming as he makes his way along the Hell Train. As is typical for a guide like her, Hwaryun correctly deduces that Bomb's going to meet Rachel. On a more alarming note, Hwaryun informs him that she doesn't know what kind of power it is, but something is breaking all the laws of the Hell Train. Regardless, Hwaryun volunteers to take Bomb to Rachel's location. Endorsi arrives with Beta too, and declares that they'll be joining this manhunt. On top of that, we find out that Endorsi blames herself to a certain degree for not finishing off that freckled scumbag when she had the chance, inadvertently allowing her to get to Kun. Meanwhile, on the 91st floor, we find out that not even El Robina's powerful beams are able to harm even a single hair on Jin Sung. The whole fleet is absolutely in awe of how much of a beast Jin Sung really is. But not Masheni. She knows that someone like Jin Sung, who happens to be from the Ha family, could withstand even something as powerful as Jahad's deadly weapons. On the other hand, all El Rubina does to Jin Sung is ruin his wardrobe and annoy him. Still, he wonders why Jahad would break out one of his deadly weapons just to get to him, especially considering Jahad values his collection so desperately. But it doesn't matter in the end, as Jin Sung concludes that he should just smash El Rubina before it becomes even more of an annoyance to him. And with a single sweeping high kick, Jin Sung takes the deadly weapon out of commission along with scores of other floating ships in the vicinity. He then turns to Masheni and teases her a bit, asking if she only came here to watch her boys get slaughtered and telling the princess to just get out of this place if she doesn't intend to throw down. However, we find that Masheni is one weird princess, as she tells Jin Sung that she was just waiting for the smell of blood hanging in the air to get her in the mood for a scuffle. She then charges electricity in her fingers, while Jin Sung prepares to counter her attack, all the while remarking why each and every one of Jahad's princesses is a freak. While all this is happening, we spot Mi-Sing snooping on Rachel and Yura. Hilariously enough, we find out that the blonde ginger has been slumming it like the dumpy harlot that she is in the middle of the Hell Train's halls instead of sleeping in her room. And you know what? Yura has had enough of Rachel's crap at this point. On the other hand, fair play to Yura, because we see just how much of a solid friend she is when she scolds Rachel for being dumpier than her usual self, as she tells her to just go back to her room. But a scumbag is what a scumbag does, so instead of listening to the words of someone who actually knows what she's talking about, Rachel chooses to ignore Yura to leave her alone. Still, Yura proves that she's a good friend and tells Rachel that it's too dangerous out there. Satisfyingly, we see that Rachel has sunk into deep depression, telling Yura that nobody cares about her anyway. On top of that, the blonde ginger finally opens her eyes to the truth, that she's a useless piece of trash who can't do anything right. For one, she absolutely ruined the bet with Bomb and miserably failed to the power that was already right in front of her at the time. And even more hilarious is the fact that Rachel knows she's one pudgy broad, telling herself that she's ugly and pathetic. Still, Yura tries to cheer her up, but Rachel shuts her down and instead chooses to lash out at perhaps the only person stupid enough to treat her as a friend. As you'd expect, the freckled sociopath lets out another one of her woe is me speeches, telling her she'd never understand what being a trashy quim feels like, since she was born pretty. No arguments there. Rachel continues having her pity party, ranting about how she wants to go and leave, but it's interrupted when Rak enters the hall. Mi-Sing spots Rak through her observer, while the alligator warrior thanks Rachel for being such a dummy that he doesn't even have to look hard for her. And in one of Rak's most ice-cold moments, he tells the blonde nuisance that he's going to help her go to hell. From there, Rak gets ready to tussle as he increases his size and shows his ripped body. Not too far away, Mi-Sing realizes this is the moment to strike, as we discover that she has been raring to get her revenge on Team Rachel for what they did to Prince and Arkraptor. However, her plan is interrupted when Joaquin suddenly teleports right behind Mi-Sing. Joaquin doesn't need any more reason to take out Mi-Sing, as he tells the little girl that he's going to eat her soul right there and now. However, just before he could get his grubby hands on the girl, Endorsi and Huaryun arrive to throw down with the former Fug Slayer. Endorsi even calls Joaquin out for being a disgusting pig who preys on little girls like Mi-Sing. Just down below, Rak lunges at Rachel and Yura, which forces the two to go on the defensive. But before Rak could skewer them, blasts of Shinsu drop between them to reveal that Bomb has arrived, and this time he's not here to pine for Rachel's pudgy butt. Bomb then lands on the ground and is relieved that Rak hasn't taken out Rachel yet, because as we'd find out, our boy wants to be the one to put hands on the freckled scumbag. But before that, Yura tries her best to defend her friend by literally using her magic luggage to whack Bomb, but Bomb is far beyond petty tricks like that. He dodges it with ease and then blocks Yura's follow-up strike. Bomb then sends the pretty blue-haired pop star flying after telling her to stay out of it. With the distraction out of the way, Bomb approaches Rachel and basically cops to his mistake, that he didn't listen to Endorsi when she told him that they should have never let deadweight like Rachel join them on the hidden floor. As such, his naivety ended up with Kun nearly losing his life at the hands of Rachel. So Bomb now proposes something to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. As you'd expect, all Rachel could do is put on that trademark stupid look on her unattractive face when Bomb tells her that he wants a fight that would end everything between them. Back on the 91st floor, Masheni uses a technique called Masheni-style spear skill, Tre Quemos, summoning a lightning spear in her hands to attack Jin Sung. The two get into an explosive clash. Curiously, Masheni accidentally hits the already damaged El Rubina, prompting its crew to tell her to watch where she aims her techniques. Masheni gets distracted by this, which gives Jin Sung an opening to close the distance between him and the princess with the help of a technique called Physical Boost, Shinsu Piercer. Jin Sung breaks to Masheni's defenses and manages to give her a cracking open palm uppercut, but Masheni is no pushover, as she's able to dodge Jin Sung's follow-up strike. It's at this point that Jin Sung notices that Masheni hasn't really been putting up a real fight. Instead, it appears that she's just sacrificing her own troops by ambushing Jin Sung. So he asks Masheni if there is something she needs to tell him in secret. In response, we find out that Masheni has purposely struck El Rubina with her Tre Quemos technique earlier to make sure that no one could spy on them. In fact, she feigns another accidental hit towards one of her own floating ships and engulfs herself and Jin Sung inside a cloud of electricity to give them a bit of privacy. From there, Masheni informs Jin Sung of Jahad's latest 3 orders, specifically the part where the king of the tower wants everyone currently on the Hell Train to be taken out. Jin-sung is shocked to hear about this and asks Masheni why Jahad would want the regulars dead. Masheni then feigns another blast to hide the conversation they're having from prying eyes and tells Jin-sung that Jahad's troops are already gathered at the Hell Train's last stop. In addition to that, Masheni tells him that the military seems to have found some kind of solution that would allow rankers to interfere with the business of regulars. Masheni informs Jin-sung that all of this is because Jahad wants to take down someone that Fug values very highly, referring to none other than Bomb. On the other hand, Jin-sung can't believe that Masheni knows his relationship with the boy. Back on the Hell Train, Rachel acts like the nuisance that she is and tries to throw Bomb off his game by telling him about their mutual past. And just like the sociopath that she is, she tries and spins the story so that Kun would look like the bad guy, as she tells Bomb that his best friend just got what he deserved after tormenting Rachel for a long time. Being the deluded sleazebag that she truly is, Rachel even tries to gaslight Bomb into thinking that his anger at her is unjustified, since she's just competing to climb the tower like everyone else. Bomb gets all mopey and tells her that he doesn't understand Rachel, which just makes the blonde ginger lash out and act like the brat that she is. And if you're still one of those idiots who thinks this slob has any redeeming quality, then the fact that Rachel believes that she's been competing with the other regulars fair and square would probably change your mind. Rachel continues to try and talk her way out of fighting Bomb, knowing she's bound to get her sloppy behind whooped. It just goes to show that this freckled-faced slob has no idea that this isn't the same gullible Bomb that she once knew. As Bomb himself puts it, he didn't come here to hear Rachel's excuses, he came here to get revenge for what she did to Kun. Out of other options and without the strategic mind of someone like Kun, Rachel unsurprisingly pulls out the victim card to try and appeal to Bomb's soft side. But like the stupid weasel that she is, Rachel overreaches and goes so far as to claim that she never did anything wrong. Like we said guys, Bomb has had it up to here with Rachel's crap, so he doesn't fall for her old tricks. Instead, he chastises her for being too dumb to realize that she just burned herself by claiming earlier that she's been competing in the tower fair and square, and then following up by saying she did nothing wrong shortly after. And oh man, Rachel is so intellectually disadvantaged that Bomb even has to explain the entire concept of fair role to her. Namely, if you hurt someone, you should get punished for it. And given what Rachel is, the pudgy parasite thinks that she's exempt from this rule. And like a Karen who's just gotten her malnourished mind handed to her, all Rachel can come up with is to yell at Bomb and tell him to stop being ridiculous. And showing that she's the entitled brat that she is, Rachel even accuses Bomb of stealing everything from her. At that moment, the treasure-eating stingray suddenly appears and attacks Bomb, but it does nothing other than make our boy become even more resolute into putting the blonde ginger inside a body bag, as Bomb summons his thorn and prepares to end Rachel. On the 91st floor, Masheni and Jin-sung continue to have their secret chat, as she reveals that she knows enough about Bomb, namely how badly Fug needs him. However, she clarifies that she shouldn't be the one Jin-sung should be worried about. According to her, Jahad has already noticed Bomb, which prompted him to mobilize his forces to take out the boy and his companions on the Hell Train. Somewhere else, on the floor of testing, a Jahad ship hovers right above Yu Han-sung, who's been quietly having a cup of coffee until now. Yu knows that his time's up, as a Jahad family messenger named Red Brubia descends from the skies and reads a scroll containing Yu's supposed crimes against the tower. As a quick refresher, Yu's crime involves trying to hide the identity of an irregular, Bomb, in the tower and creating false reports about the boy's death. After reading out his offenses, Brubia then announces Yu's sentence: death. While this is happening, Bomb casually approaches Rachel, who freaks out and tries to attack him with her lighthouses. Of course, it does nothing, as Bomb effortlessly destroys each of her lighthouses with a black wave of Shinsu directed right at Rachel. However, Bomb does notice that there is something protecting Rachel when he sees that his Shinsu blast didn't damage the dumpy nuisance. Because if you didn't know by now, not even Rachel herself could see, much less knows, that Gustang's treasure-eating stingray is protecting her. Sensing the stingray's presence, Bomb decides to test the waters first before going for a full-on offensive. So he uses his blue shield technique and launches it toward Rachel. When he notices that something invisible blocked it, Bomb confirms that he has to take down whatever it is so that he could get to his target. Bomb then channels his Shinsu black hole sphere, orb, and launches it around Rachel's immediate vicinity. It works too, as the treasure-eating stingray teleports out of there so it doesn't get hit, something Bomb immediately notices. All the while, in another room, Joaquin is having a heated duel against Endorsi and Huayun, and it seems that the former Fug Slayer is having a hard time against the princess, now that she's able to freely wield her quality-manifested Shinsu darts to continuously barrage Joaquin and force him to go on the defensive. To make things harder for him, Huayun is currently on the sidelines coaching Endorsi on how to take him out. Joaquin knows that he's currently at a disadvantage, but there's no time to dwell on it, as Endorsi pulls out Bong Bong and surprises Joaquin when he sees that he's about to get double-teamed by the princess and a freshly mobilized Beta. Joaquin has no time to counter, so he ends up eating one of Beta's supercharged fists. Meanwhile, Bomb knows that there's nothing protecting Rachel anymore, so he approaches the sleazebag. He then berates her for being such a rat who's only been inconveniencing everyone around her by hurting and tricking people to climb the tower. Bomb loses his marbles when he asks why Rachel would even try to hurt his best friend. As for the scumbag, well, she has no answer for any of Bomb's questions. And in a disappointing turn of events, Bomb doesn't finish the job and instead lets Rachel off with one final warning. If she ever shows herself to the people who matter to him, he's really going to take her head. Clearly put in her place, Rachel could only remain frozen in place, bent over in the middle of the room. And just to add a bit of spice to the proceedings, Baum even tells the scumbag that he hopes they never meet again. But in an act of pure thoughtless gall, Rachel attempts to get the last word in by admitting to Baum how jealous she was of him, and about how she was afraid that her destiny is just to look on while Baum reaches for greatness. After all, he's basically the chosen one, while Rachel's just an entitled sociopathic scrub, and a physically unattractive one at that. As you'd expect, Rachel's self-effacing rant isn't genuine, it's just her working another angle. Specifically, she tries to tempt Baum into finding out why he was trapped inside that cave in the first place, claiming that she knows all about his origins. Back on the floor of Tess, Yu has accepted his fate and prepares for his execution with one last sip of his coffee. All of a sudden, someone bursts through Jahad's ship to reveal a woman carrying a sword. Yu spots the lady and is absolutely thrilled that she's back. That's because this woman happens to be none other than the ruler of the floor of Tess, Lord Evankel. Not only that, but Evankel is the 60th strongest high ranker in the tower, and she is not too happy that intruders have snuck into her floor to harm her loyal servant, Yu Han-sung. Brubia spots Evankel and doesn't waste time to get us up to speed with who this character is. According to him, Evankel became the ruler of the floor of Tess when she straight up took out the original ruler who Jahad assigned for this place. Brubia goes as far as to provide us with a quick profile of Evankel, referring to her as an unpredictable high ranker that has no problem disobeying orders of the king. Contradicting everything he just told us, Brubia then demands Evankel to show him some respect, given that he's on official business as Jahad's messenger. Of course, that's not going to happen, as Evankel tells Brubia to shut his mouth and instead put some respect to her name. In fact, we get to see just how unhinged Evankel is when she offers to take Brubia's life as a sign of respect for her. But the standoff is broken when a ranker named Tinker Yulcha teleports beside Evankel and tells her to stop messing with Brubia. Tinker introduces herself as a faithful servant of Caliban and the commander of the 4th Squadron under the direct command of the Jahad family. Yu hears this and recognizes Caliban as the famous human collector and wonders if he has aligned himself with Jahad's army. On the other hand, Evankel tells Tinker to shut her hole too, because she doesn't care who she works for. What matters to Evankel is that she knows they've come here to hurt Yu, and she is having none of that. So she offers the intruders two options: screw off or die. In response, Tinker burps. Evankel takes this as a formal challenge and swings her sword to release a wave of energy. It turns out that Tinker's burp is her way of activating a technique that allows her to summon large bubbles of Shinzu to attack Evankel. It doesn't work, because Evankel's energy wave manages to pop Tinker's bubbles in an instant. Evankel follows up with another powerful energy slash, but a puppet appears between her and Tinker to block the attack. Evankel instantly recognizes the person controlling the puppet not too far away. This guy reveals himself and we find out that it's a high ranker named Yolker, who also happens to be the second servant of Caliban in the 4th Squadron of the Royal Guards. Evankel mistakes Yolker for Caliban, but he corrects her and says that their boss is currently on important business at the last station of the Hell Train. This infuriates Evankel, since she's now forced to face off against these scrubs instead of a worthy opponent. However, Yolker reassures her that he and his crew would be more than enough to handle her. This further enrages Evankel, and we find out from Yolker that she possesses the power of the Ancients. Still, as he puts it, there's about 30 rankers surrounding her and a couple of high rankers too, Yolker being one of them. Evankel really doesn't care and just wants to throw hands, so she channels her energy and prepares to meet the intruders head-on. However, the clash never happens, because the administrator appears in front of them all of a sudden, and he does not appreciate all the racket that Evankel has been causing. That is to say, it's so noisy that the administrator couldn't get some sleep. As punishment for all the noise and for abandoning her duties as the floor of Tess ruler, the administrator literally fires Evankel and Yu by blasting them with energy. It does not take their lives, though. Instead, Evankel and Yu are transported to a warp gate. Evankel wonders where the warp gate leads to, and Yu suspects that the administrator is trying to take them somewhere, specifically the last station of the Hell Train. And after griping a bit for getting fired, Yu and Evankel decide to enter the warp gate and start their journey. Back on the Hell Train, Beta sends Joaquin flying after hitting him with a powerful punch. Joaquin crashes into the ground and prepares for a counterattack after getting back on his feet. However, he hears Huayun calling his name from behind. Joaquin turns to see Huayun, who asks him if he could do a favor for her. Joaquin assumes Huayun wants him to eat her soul. And say what you will about this crazy former Fug Slayer, but he is a picky eater, as he tells Huayun he doesn't eat filthy souls like hers. However, Huayun steers their conversation back on track and tells Joaquin that one of her visions informed her that all of them are going to end up facing an enormous challenge at the very last station of the Hell Train. So Huayun proposes this: if Joaquin would help her and her companions get through the upcoming crisis, she's going to help him find his last clone, which would allow him to fully become his old self, also known as the Thug Slayer White. While all this is happening, Rachel continues to work her angle on Bomb, baiting him with information about the cave he was trapped in. Bomb calls her out, telling Rachel that she told him that she knew nothing about it in the past, but Rachel replies by telling Bomb that she lied. The blonde scumbag then goes on to tell Bomb that he wasn't meant to come to the tower to defeat Jahad and become the hero who would change the whole place. Instead, Rachel calls him a monster born to curse this tower and devour everything. And just to prove that Rachel is more than willing to sink to any depth in order to get what she wants, she even mentions Arlene's name and tells Bomb that his mom always called him a monster. Now, Bomb might have learned not to trust Rachel after all this time, but there's no denying that he's not exactly a smart kid. So he falls for Rachel's ploy and tries to interview her some more about Arlene. Knowing that she now has the upper hand, we get to see just how much of a strumpet for attention Rachel is when we find out the reason she told Bomb all of this was so that she'd still have someone chasing after her dumpy butt, as she tells Bomb that now he has a reason to keep chasing after her even if he's absolutely repulsed by everything about Rachel these days. After that, Rachel and Yura make their escape, leaving Bomb wondering how the hell Rachel knows Arlene's name. Several months pass, and we find ourselves at the alley leading to the last station. Here we see Shibisu and his team lounging around while they wait for Bomb and the others to arrive. Shibisu is simply ecstatic that they'll be able to reconnect with their good old friends after all this time. Plus, he's excited that they'll be the first ones to greet their favorite mates. However, Hats tells Shibisu that they might not be the first ones there. They look out the window to see that a fleet of ships have already gathered around the last station waiting for the Hell Train to arrive. Shibisu analyzes the ships and speculates that the symbols on the warships signify that they're owned by regulars with families backing them. On a side note, Tower of God explains that regulars are allowed to form teams and be sponsored by any of the 10 great families to maintain fairness among their ranks. On the downside, the 10 great families take advantage of this rule by pretty much using these regulars as their private pawns. Shibisu notices one of the symbols on the warships, which happens to be that of a skull. He surmises that it belongs to the crew of a guy named the ever-curious Levy. As Shibisu puts it, Levy happens to be one of the few regulars in the tower directly sponsored by the Jahad family. Still, the question remains, why are all these guys rushing to the last station in droves? Hats has a feeling that they're headed for the same destination as their team, but that's not good enough. So Shibisu makes the call to do some reconnaissance work in the meantime. Shortly after that, we find ourselves at Warship Rest Area, Station Dock Number 3, where a bunch of random regulars sponsored by the families talking shop and going about their daily lives. Unknown to them, Vespa is watching with her observer as she reports her findings to Shibisu. Of note is how Vespa recognizes the symbol on their uniforms, which is that of a red beard on a human face, an insignia that she thinks is hideous. Shibisu then tells Vespa to keep her eyes peeled and calm if she finds out why they're headed for the last station. Meanwhile, at Dock Number 5, we finally get to see Verdi again, and she's as adorably weird as ever. Just like Vespa, Verdi spies on the sponsored regulars with the help of her octopus Shinyu. According to Special Correspondent Verdi, the regulars at Dock 5 have disembarked from their ship and they happen to be a crew made up entirely of furries. Verdi reports to Shibisu that these furries are wearing a symbol of an ear against a green background and warns them that they might be part of a much larger group. After that, Shibisu wonders if they should wait for more information from their other guys like Benny, but Hats runs out of patience and decides to put matters into his own hands. He walks out of the room after telling Shibisu that he'll force the information out of these regulars with his sword. But of course, Shibisu is not happy about this, since Hats might just end up stirring more trouble. But the swordsman doesn't listen and instead heads straight for the furries' location. He wastes no time to tell them that he's going to cut off their heads if they don't answer his question. Back on the Hell Train, Rack and Bomb check up on Kun, who remains in suspense animation inside his glass case. We then move to a flashback from a month earlier where we find that Evan informed him about how there just might be a way to wake up Kun again. As it turns out, Kun's suspended state is actually a rare ability that appears in their family's direct descendants. Guys who are skilled at handling ice can sometimes break out of this state by themselves, but since Kun instinctively did it to save his life, he can't do that. However, Evan reveals that he pored over the ancient chronicles and discovered a case where someone in that state managed to wake up again after being warmed up by the flame of the Yon family. Bomb and Rack hear this and instantly perk up after realizing that Yua might be able to help Kun out. However, Evan bursts their bubble when he tells the two that it's not going to be that easy. For one, the ancient chronicles specifically refer to a famous ranker from the Yon family named Woon Yon, the same person who thought out someone suffering from Kun's current state. According to Evan, Yua's power might not be enough to bring Kun back to consciousness. Plus, she's currently several floors below them, so linking up with Yua would be difficult. But then, good news arrives when Yuri tells Bomb and Rack that she's going to introduce them to Woon Yon. On top of that, we find out that Woon is currently a member of Wolhaik Song, and Yuri's pretty sure that he'll help them out as a favor. And with that, both Bomb and Rack celebrate the prospect of having their best friend. In the present, Bomb quietly tells Kun to hang in there, since they're going to wake him up soon. In the meantime, Endorsi and Horyun have a soak inside the Hell Train swimming pool. Endorsi is disappointed that Rachel got away again. And on top of that, even Joaquin disappeared in the middle of their duel. Endorsi suspects that Horyun had something to do with Joaquin's sudden disappearance, considering that the guy was hankering for a fight to the death when they faced off. Horyun lies and tells Endorsi that Joaquin was already gone when she got there. Endorsi doesn't push her any further, but she's convinced that Horyun is hiding something from the rest of the group. Endorsi then changes the subject and asks where Misang is. Horian tells her that the little girl is currently hard at work, training herself to become stronger in order to avenge her fallen friends. And Dorsey thinks it's a good thing that Mi-Sang is doing something productive and tells Horian that she actually gave the young girl a decent item as a present. And Dorsey was just about to reveal what this present was, but Beta interrupts their chat when he informs him that Joaquin's final clone has vanished. Later, we see that Bomb has paid the God of Guardians another visit. The God of Guardians asks him if he's alright, since he keeps coming back to his home even though Bomb has already finished his training. However, Bomb tells him that he still hasn't managed to take out his second thorn properly and aims to accomplish this before leaving the Hell Train. The God of Guardians welcomes Bomb and the two get ready for a round of sparring. Meanwhile, Bomb recalls his most recent encounter with Rachel, and although he will stop from taking her out yet again, it's nice to find out that Bomb has become resolute and simply getting stronger to protect the people that matter to him, regardless of what anyone thinks of him. Somewhere else, Boro and Hockney are inside their room. Hockney asks Boro what the last station is like, and we get yet another classic Tower of God exposition dump as Boro gives Hockney the lowdown about the place. According to him, the last station is a cool place in that there wouldn't be any serious danger once they arrive. Just to be clear, that's because none of the passengers currently aboard the Hell Train have any idea that Jahad's forces have already mobilized there. Boro goes on to explain that the last station is divided into two areas. One of those areas is shaped like a disc, and it also happens to be a place that people might enter even without a ticket. In addition, Boro tells Hockney that regulars who have cleared the whole tower are treated to a world-class hotel for their accommodations. The person in charge of the last station is a man named Lee Shawoon. As far as Boro knows, Lee was a really successful regular who arrived at the station after losing his legs on the train or something. More importantly, Boro goes on to inform us that control of the last station is currently split between Lee's adopted son and daughter. The daughter runs a massive bar there. Boro then stops his monologue and asks Hockney what he plans to do after getting off the Hell Train. Hockney admits that he's not really sure where to go next, but he's decided to stick around with Bomb while continuing to search for the last piece of his picture, Red Light. And with that, Boro sums up their whole journey up until this point, stating that he never even imagined that it would be this wild. In any case, he only wishes that everyone makes it to the end safely. Back at dock number 5, the furries attempt to gang up on Hats, but he easily dispatches them with a technique called Spectral Dance, Issen. He only leaves one furry alive and interrogates him about why people are heading for the last station. The furry reveals that they're only here because they received an order from their sponsors to annihilate all the ticketers on the train. He speculates that their sponsors want Bomb and the others out of the picture because they must have broken a major rule. In fact, rumors have already spread that the people currently aboard the Hell Train have all joined forces with Fug and have been terrorizing it like they own the place. More striking is the fact that Jahad's rankers are already gathering to take out everyone on the Hell Train. To sum it all up, Shibisu and Hats ultimately find out that Bomb and all their other friends have now been marked for death. Somewhere else on the tower, inside a high-speed warship in Jahad's army, we see that Jinsung has single-handedly taken out everyone inside and just commandeered the craft using one of the fallen crew's members' eyeballs to unlock the warship's system. From there, Jinsung tells the system to head for the last station of the Hell Train as soon as possible. The system sets course while Jinsung notices that this ship actually belongs to Calavan, based on the symbol that the fallen crew members wear. Realizing who he's up against, Jinsung thinks that Calavan isn't going to be an easy target even for someone as powerful as him. While this is happening, we then get a glimpse of the 4th Squadron of Jahad's army on the 52nd floor of the tower, particularly Calavan's own warship. Inside it, we're introduced to Calavan himself, the captain of the 4th Squadron, who's currently playing a piece called Rhapsody on his piano, remarking that it's an appropriate piece for this mission. And that is the Tower of God Hell Train finale. What a ride it has been, and I hope you enjoyed every bit of it just as much as we enjoyed creating these long videos for you guys. Thank you for everyone's support. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.